What's up, guys? This is Courtside Soundoff podcast today.
I'm not
Dustin Ross.
surprised,
He's Andrew Ortega.
motherfuckers.
A lot of stuff to talk about today. UFC Fight Island 3, UFC Vegas, the MLB's COVID outbreak, the NFL, NHL, NBA, boxing, everything is on the table. Before we get into that, I want to talk to you guys about Fight Plus. Fight Plus provides a special selection of premium events for boxing, MMA, pro wrestling, and other combat sports. Watch free events with over 25 promotions 30 days after airing. Fight Plus includes organizations like Brave FC, Unified MMA, UC MMA, CZW, BKB, FSW, BCB Boxing, Kunlun, and much, much more, and they're available for your viewing pleasure. You can cancel at any time. If you guys want a free Fight Plus 7-day free trial, you can go to the links that are available on our YouTube, our website, on Twitter, anywhere you can find us. You can find the links. Enjoy Fight Plus for a free 7 days. If you don't cancel after 7 days, you will be charged. However, if you want to just try it out, watching free fights, watching wrestling, watching boxing, you can do that. Real quick announcement, real quick housekeeping notes before we start talking about fighting and MLB and all that stuff. We are now officially on some more platforms. You know, I always say that anywhere you can find a podcast, you can find us. That's not true, not whatsoever. We're not on we're on a fair bit, you know, Spotify, YouTube, Podbean, you know, Apple, iTunes, the whole thing. However, we are now on 2 more platforms, including Google Podcasts, which is by far the biggest one, and also TuneIn. TuneIn is basically, if you have an Alexa, if you have an Amazon device, you know, one of the ones you could talk to, you can install TuneIn, and you can listen to us through that. So if you guys want to do that, you want to listen to us on Google Podcasts and maybe give us a review, maybe subscribe there, we'd appreciate it as always. So last Saturday night, from the Flash Forum in Abu Dhabi, Fight Island, the last Fight Island card for the record, and there was a lot of stuff to talk about coming out of it, but in the main event, Robert Whittaker defeating Darren Till in a razor-close fight, and we could talk about scorecards in a minute, our personal ones, but it was scored 48-47 across all judge scorecards. Robert Whittaker rebounding after his loss to Israel Adesanya last year, Darren Till getting his first loss at middleweight. What were your impressions of the fight, man? Because personally, me, you know, obviously Till dropped Whittaker in the first round, nearly finished the fight. Whittaker survived. Second round, he nearly finishes Till. And then after that, it was a bit of a kind of a point fighting, you know, both guys just trying, Till staying on the outside, not being very active, but Whittaker swinging and missing a lot. So scorecards pretty much all over the place. First question, who did you score it for? And 2, what were your impressions of both of them coming out of it?
You know, the way it started, it was a bit weird, you know, because I was like, oh boy, this went south really quick, you know. But you know, going into it, I thought that you know, the way it happened, I was just like, oh man, it's really gonna end like this right now. And I was just like, oh, not again, not again. But you know, it didn't. He rallied back, like he said. And then the way it followed up in the second round, I was like, oh, well, this changed it up. So it was really weird because the entire time, you know, and I watched it. I wasn't like super focused on it for some reason, but I was trying to best to pay attention to it, and it felt weird. Like something was off in the fight. Like I did not expect it to go the way it did. You know, kind of just slower. I don't know. I expected a very different type of fight, or maybe I don't know. I had some false type of hope, and then the way it started, obviously, I just thought it was gonna be over. I'm like, oh man, it's over.
Yeah, I mean, personally, me, I was someone that on the side of this fight could be kind of boring. I mean, Till's style, and then obviously Whittaker's, not really Whittaker's style. Whittaker has like a very much action-packed style, but whenever you're facing a guy like Till, who's very much on the outside, he's more willing to have a boring fight. I wasn't that surprised that it was boring, but who did you personally score for? Because as much as I was, you know, I picked Whittaker, I thought he was going to get the win. I actually scored it for Till. I scored, I think it was 1-4-5 for Darren Till. Who did you score for?
You know, I thought I had it for Till too. Like I watched the fight and I'm like, I feel like Till won it, but then when Whittaker won it, I was like, but then you look at the stats, so I think I need to rewatch it, you know?
Yeah, that's kind of where I am. I know the stats on the night of, which, you know, those aren't always accurate. They're not always right.
No, you're right.
Yeah, not at all. But I know they had Whittaker leading, but I just remember thinking, 4th round, I gave, obviously Till won round 1, near the finish the fight. 4th round, I remember thinking the strikes were super close, but Till, you know, he was pressuring more, so I gave him that round, and I liked his counters a lot in that round. At 5th round, he was having decent success on the feet, and then he stuffed Whittaker's takedowns near the end of the fight, and then he also cut him open really, really bad. Whittaker, obviously, in the final minute of that fight, if you guys didn't see it, he got opened up really, really badly with another step-in elbow, which is the same thing that dropped him in the first round. He started bleeding everywhere. Whittaker went for 3 takedowns. I'm not sure if they were officially counted. I don't think they were because he never really had him on the ground. Till stuffed all of them. It was a really incredible scramble. But, yeah, I see that we're both on the opposite side of the judges, but at the same time, super close fight. I don't blame anybody that scored it for Whittaker. It was a razor close fight, but I see we're both on that side. Anyways, moving on to the co-main event, which is another one with interesting scorecards. It was a split decision win for Mauricio Shogun, who going 3-0 in the trilogy against Little Nog. I gotta be honest, man, this fight was a lot of fun. Maybe it was just me. Some people I saw called it depressing. But, I mean, did you also think it was a fun one?
I thought it was fun. I enjoyed it for what it was worth. It's two older guys, I should say, who are, for some reason, can still perform really well. Their bodies are just, yeah. Well, credit to Little Nog. He looked good. What was it, that first round?
Yeah, Little Nog looked better in this fight than he has in a long time. But don't look now, but Shogun has, 6 of his last 7, I think, which is insane.
Future light heavyweight champion.
He's gonna fight in his last fight. He's gonna fight Bones, and he's gonna win. He's gonna win again,
or die.
Probably. But yeah, man, I thought it was a lot of fun. It was a lot more fun than I thought it was gonna be. I thought it was gonna be pretty depressing going in. Instead, it was just 2 old dudes swinging and banging. And I personally scored for Shogun. I think I scored the last 2 rounds for him. But at the same point, I think this is a fight where, obviously, wins and losses matter, but not as severely as it did in the main event. There was no stakes here whatsoever. But who did you score for?
Alrighty. I'm back.
All right. Okay, so I would just talk about who I scored it for. I scored it for Shogun, gave him the last 2 rounds. Who did you score for?
Oh, I had it for Shogun, man. That was no surprise. Come on.
Yeah,
it was not good at the start, but it was.
It was a split decision. Let's be fair here. It was a split decision. So 2 of the 3 gave it to Shogun. But yeah, is there anything else in the undercard you wanted to talk about coming out of this card?
Undercard. Well, I want to talk about something that happened on the main card. I did not expect Gus to get submitted in the first round that quick. I'll say that right.
That was pretty surprising.
Look, people have been hating on these light heavyweights coming up to heavyweight. I had faith in Gus. Gus at heavyweight looked weird, by the way.
Yeah, he didn't look out of shape, but he
didn't look like the same human being.
No.
Looking like a different man,
Yeah, and the way that it happened, it was really surprising to me personally. He got taken down and submitted almost immediately.
But he didn't look bad. He was still moving relatively well,
I thought his striking and his movement was good until, Fabricio went in for the takedown.
Which is look, for what it's worth, Gus didn't get the shit beat out of him. He got submitted, kind of quickly, but it's granted, do you see who got submitted at heavyweight? It's kind of not even a surprise,
Yeah.
So, I didn't expect it to happen, but, it breaks my heart because I really wanted Gus to look good in that fight, at least at heavyweight. I don't think I would have wanted him to stay at heavyweight, but, I wish there would have been a little bit more. But, sometimes that's just the way it rolls, and it was, shout out Fabricio, though, for getting that submission. He needed that after that Linnick loss.
Yeah. Disappointing for Gus. Obviously, he's lost 3 in a row now, technically. I think he should still give it another go. It didn't seem like he was going to retire, at least in his post-fight comments. It didn't seem like he was going to retire again. Fabricio said he's probably going to leave the UFC after this one. Obviously, it was his last fight as a part of his contract. Do you think he goes to Bellator next?
Probably.
You excited for that fatal rematch, man?
Isn't that where all the old heavyweights go now? They go to Bellator.
Pretty much. Do you think... Okay, so it seems like it's almost destined because both these guys said they want it, and Fabricio said he's leaving the UFC. Who do you favor in a Fedor Emelianenko rematch?
The Fedor got hands. Still.
Fedor still does have hands, and he still has surprisingly... Obviously, Chael Sonnen was a light heavyweight, but if you guys saw that Chael Sonnen fight, that was the closest thing we've seen to vintage Fedor in a long time. Dude can still scramble and grapple. People forget that.
Sambo champ.
Yeah, Sambo champ. So both those guys are near the end of their career. I think that would be a fun one. They're both in their 40s, and honestly, it gives Fedor a chance for redemption. and gives Fabricio a chance to kind of, a lot of people still to this day call it a fluke. So I think that'd be a good fight for both of them to, kind of end their career on. But anyways, personally for me, on the rest of the undercard, like the rest of the card, UFC Fight Island 3 to wrap up, Carlos Esparza getting a win over Marina Rodriguez. And don't look now, but Carlos Esparza might be getting a title shot next, man. Hear me out. Apparently they're trying to do Weili. They're trying to do Weili fighting like someone. Like, it was originally going to be Rose, but then Rose is still hurt. Andrade is moving up. Like, a whole lot of fights do not make sense. And Joanna just lost to her. Carlos Esparza has won 4 fights in a row. And she might be near a title shot, man. It's crazy. But also, other fights on the card. Paul Craig submitting Guzman into Gulov. First round. Shout out to him. He said he wants a Shogun fight next. We'll see if that happens. Alex Oliveira, the man with like 17 children, defeating Peter Sabata. Great win by Oliveira here, man. Oliveira, it's kind of crazy to think about, but not that long ago, he was on the verge of being, released. Lost 3 fights in a row, and then he beat Max Griffin earlier this year, and then rebounded. Really nice win over Peter Sabata here, man. Great win. And here's the controversy that I really wanted to talk about. Francisco Trinaldo, Jay Herbert. Did you see this finish? The last fight of the prelims.
Something? I heard about the drama. I've seen the drama, but for some reason, I didn't care to look into it. I heard the audio, though. I did hear the audio of what was said. Okay,
so Francisco Trinaldo facing Jay Herbert, very young kid, young prospect. Believe he's a former Cage Warriors champion. Do not quote me on that, unless I'm probably mixing up with somebody else. That seems like me. Anyways, Jay Herbert came out looking phenomenal. Nearly knocked out Trinaldo in the first round. Trinaldo comes back the second round, third round, competitive. Whoever wins this wins the fight. Trinaldo knocks him out with a right hand, puts him out cold. And then Trinaldo walks over there, and he's out cold, and he stops fighting. And then Herb Dean says, no, you got to keep fighting. And Trinaldo's like, what? Like, he's unconscious. Herb Dean's like, you got to keep fighting. So he starts laying more punches on an unconscious Herbert who's displaying the fencing thing. Like, whenever you're knocked out cold and you kind of looks like you're dabbing, basically. The Aljamain Sterling dab, which he still memes on to this day.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so that's what it looked like. Jay Herbert was out cold, and Herb Dean wanted Trinaldo to keep on punching him. Afterwards, all the drama came because Dan Hardy and Herb Dean got into it because, I guess Dan Hardy took off his headset and started arguing with Herb about the stoppage because, why are you letting a dude who's clearly knocked out take ridiculous damage? But if we're talking, that was obviously an interesting story. I'm on the side of Dan Hardy in that situation. If a dude's knocked out cold, why in the hell are you like making him take more punishment? That is ridiculous to me. That was a terrible stoppage. Herb's had a lot of those lately, and I'm glad that somebody decided to speak out against it. And then obviously the last fight we're going to talk about, second to last fight we're going to talk about, Piana Kinzad defeating Betch Kohea, 2 future champions right there. So shout out them. That was actually a really fun scrap. And then Tanner Bozer, future champion as well. Angel, I'm going to let you take the lead on this one. Your boy getting his second knockout in a row. The Canadian Mullet Man.
The Canadian Mullet. He got hands, bro. He got hands. I did not expect it, dude. Like, if you look at him, base, you would not expect the guy to be able to throw that many punches in that, amount of time. But granted, we did have Andy who threw a lot of punches really quick too. But man, Maurice Green, man, he called them out. They said they wanted it on the island, but I don't know if they're gonna do it or not.
Yeah.
Uncle Dana.
Just Uncle Dana, come on. No, I'd like to see that one. I think Maurice Green, Tanner Bozer is a pretty interesting one. I think I lean Bozer, but at the same point, I think Maurice has got some submission skills, so it'll be interesting to see.
You got to get tested, man. That's what it's all about. That's what the UFC is about.
So, yeah, that's going to be – if that one does happen, that'd be a nice battle to, kind of top 15 guys. They're around that area.
Maybe just about to break that 15 range. Maybe not there yet, but need that win to get through. Exactly.
I'm pretty sure Bozer should be ranked at this point, at least. 3 of his last 4? He should be ranked. And his one loss to Cyril Gane, who's really, really good too. So, anyways, moving on. UFC Fight. Well, they're back in Vegas, so I guess I'm about to say UFC Fight Island. UFC Vegas 5. UFC Apex. They're back in Las Vegas. The main event: Derek Brunson, Edmund Shabazian. This is originally supposed to be Holly Holm taking on Irene Aldana in a 5-round main event. Aldana tested positive for COVID, so we're hoping she's well. However, Brunson, Shabazian moving up to the main event. Is it just me, or is this an even better fight than the original main event? Because personally, like, these are two dudes. They swing and bang. They're both, obviously, Shabazian is one of the greatest prospects in the UFC, man. Very young kid, 22 years of age. All but one of his wins have come via the way of knockout. First round knockout, nonetheless. And that's rare to see in a middleweight. Obviously, Derek Brunson's been around in the game for a long time. Wins over Uriah Hall, Ed Herman, Lyoto Machida, Ian Heinisch. He's won 2 in a row against Heinisch and Theodoru. Elias Theodoru, friend of the podcast. Anyway, so yeah, man, who are you leaning in this one? I think this is a really, really interesting test for Shabazi at this point.
Well, the guy's 22. This is kind of a weird thing for me right now because the UFC's had the tendency to push people a little too quick. So how do you feel about that? At base level.
I mean, I think this is I think they have to do this. I think they're actually taking it probably better than they have recently in terms of pushing dudes too soon, because Shabazian got into the UFC at 6-0. I mean, he fought. It's weird to think about, but like, he fought on the Dana White Contender Series. Whenever he was, I think, 20, he won that via knockout, beat Darren Stewart. Then he knocked out Charles Byrd, submitted Jack Marshman. Those are two dudes who are on the verge of top 15, just on the outside. And they faced Brad Tavares, who's top 15 forever, basically. And he put him out cold. So really the only kind of way to move up is to face a guy like Brunson in the situation, who is ranked number 8. He's, veteran of the game. And he's basically, for all intents and purposes, he's kind of a gatekeeper in a way. I feel like that term gets used as an insult, but I really think it's true in this situation. And I'm not using it as an insult. I think that Derek Brunson in his, best is probably a guy who could win a title, but as of right now, he's just kind of in that area of being a gatekeeper, which I think makes sense for Shabazian to face him at this point. So I guess I got to ask, like, who are you leaning towards? Who do you think pulls it off in the main event?
I think it's a hard fight, this, because I think if Edmund lost, I should say, it wouldn't be like his fault or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the way that I'm leaning towards. Generally speaking, I think Shabazian, he's a really talented kid, and I guess didn't mean to cut you off there, but I'm kind of leaning towards him in this one. Brunson is a super talented guy, but as we said before, he's kind of a gatekeeper. He's kind of in that situation where, if you beat him, you're probably a title contender. Personally, it's a tough situation, but I think I'm going to take Shabazian. I think it's going to be I'm going to guess it's going to be a stoppage.
You think he takes that leap?
I do. I think he's going to take the leap. I think he's going to be able to do it.
Okay. Like I told you, I think it's a toss-up. Not because he's not talented, but because it's a test of his skills at this point in his career. Because 22, man, that's crazy. Like, I didn't think he was that young. Thought he was a little bit older at this point. Because obviously I look back, I saw the Contender fight, which was insane, instant. But then at the same time, you look at Brunson, it's like the Jacare loss, old Jacare, that's probably probably not the best look. But then he lost to Izzy, but the following ones were good. But man, this is a tough one. I feel like I truly don't believe that there's a wrong answer, but I'll go with the future and Shabazi and see if if the UFC's done a job here, like done a good job and kind of helped him grow and see if that he's ready for that kind of test. This is probably like his first step into those high tier fights.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I'm leaning. I think if he wins here, he has to get a top 5 next. And I think, honestly, if he wins, I'd love to see him and Darren Till go at it. That's the way I'm leaning, but, we'll have to see. Next week's card is really, really great, and I can't wait for that one, but obviously we'll have to talk about that next week. Is there anything on the undercard you want to talk about? Because for me, there's a couple of fights that are... Oh, wait a minute. We skipped right past the co-main. My bad, guys.
Josh doesn't like the co-main.
No, I love the co-main. I swear. Joanne Calderwood. I'm a huge fan. anyways, women's flyweight, battle of two contenders here. I think the winner gets a title shot. Joanne Calderwood was already set up for a title shot before before COVID happened. Jennifer Maia has won 2 of her last 3. Her one loss to Caitlin Chukagi, and Joanne Calderwood was set up for the title shot before Valentina Shevchenko got hurt. And she's won 3 of her last 4, beat Andrea Lee last year. Who are you leaning towards?
I don't think, stylistically, I think that the matchup's interesting because I don't think Joanne's kind of like come forward, take one, and give one will be like the best thing against Jennifer, At least that's how I feel. Maybe she's grown since that. I don't know. I was looking back at some old fights and I felt like she was kind of relying on that, go forward a lot. And she strung a good, she did a good job of that. No hate by any means. But Jennifer, I think the one big thing is is she gonna be able to make weight, especially now with everything going on. So I mean, I think she, I imagine she has a good camp. I imagine she wakes weight. So I think Jennifer probably wants to, extends the fight out, which is probably when she wants to do, take it as far as she can, and play her game, make it smart,
Yeah. Personally, I'm leaning towards Joanne Calderwood here. I've always been a big, fan of Calderwood. I think at flyweight especially because I thought she cut way too much down to strawweight. I think she's going to get the win here, and she's going to get her title shot back. I don't know why she took this fight. She had it locked in. But, good. If she wants to fight, good for her. It's her choice. I think she's going to go ahead and get the win here and not lose her title shot. If she does,
it's her body, it's her choice. Come on.
Yeah, fair enough. But if she loses it, I'm not sure what the division's going to do because Jennifer Maia is pretty unreliable in terms of making weight. And, she would have only had, one fight in a row to get the title shot. Would they give it to Cynthia Calvillo? Would they give it to Jessica Andrade, who's moving up and facing Jessica I? I think in a month that fight just got announced. So we'll have to see what's interesting in 125 there. But is there anything else on the undercard you want to talk about?
Dude, our fan-friendly fighter, Vicente Luque, is back.
Yeah, man, he's taking on Randy Brown. Randy Brown's legit too.
It's if certain things would have gone better. Well, I shouldn't say certain things. If Luque won certain fights, I feel like he could be in a title position, but he just wasn't able to get those wins. And it's hard. I think it was the Wonder Boy loss that really knocked him down. But outside of that, there were some pretty good wins in there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, man, Vicente Luque though, I'm super high on this kid. I just wish he wouldn't take so much punishment. He gets into way too many wars, but he's still a top 15 guy. I think he's good enough to beat Randy Brown. Randy Brown's had 2 nice wins in a row, though. So, and even though, 3 of his last 4, his one loss to Nico Price in a fight that he was winning, and that fight, that knockout was awesome. So shout out Nico Price. That knockout was awesome, though. So, it'll be interesting to see, man. Randy Brown, I think he's one of the bigger underdogs in the card, but he's a live dog here, man. In terms of other fights, though, Lando Venata, Bobby Green. This is a rematch of a fight that happened years ago at UFC 216, I believe. It was a draw in that one. I thought Venata won it, but that was one of my favorite fights of the year, and they're running it back. Lando Venata, this is a fan-friendly card, man. It really, really has. It really has a lot of fights. Obviously, Vicente Luque, Randy Brown, Lando Venata, Bobby Green, and then obviously the main event should all be a lot of fun. Lando, I think he's won 2 in a row. No, 2 of his last 3. His one loss is to Mark Jacasey. He beat Yancy Medeiros. So this one's gonna be a dope fight, man. Bobby Green's coming off a win over Clay Guida. It's an awesome fight. So, and then also Kevin Holland, who I'm super high on. Meme King Kevin Holland, young dude. Really looked good in the UFC so far to this point. He's also fighting. And then shout out Ed Herman. And the only reason why I'm doing the shout out Ed Herman, Gerald Mearshart. Ed Herman has to be the most overlooked guy in the UFC in the entire history of the promotion. Ed Herman has been fighting UFC since 2006. He was in the Ultimate Fighter 3, okay? This dude's been fighting in Pancrase. He's been fighting UFC concurrently. He was never out of the promotion. He's been fighting UFC for 14 straight years. He never gets any credit for it. He's never been in any UFC games. He's never been in anything. He's won 2 fights in a row. and now he's taking on Gerald Meerschaert, where if he wins, he might get into the light heavyweight rankings. It's insane to think about, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. So shout out Ed Herman, man. Shout out him if he gets it. So, veteran of the game, very overlooked. Anyways, moving on to the MLB. The MLB, Major League Baseball, made its return last week. Personally, I'm a Royals fan, and I normally don't care about baseball. It's just, I care a lot actually, but we're so bad, it's not fun. But I started watching it out of curiosity. I've watched like all of their games because the Royals are actually not too bad this year. I think we're 3-4 or 4-3, something along those lines. Our offense is dope. Jorge Soler has been killing it. Whit Merrifield's killing it as always. But that's not the story here. The story's not about the Royals. The story will never be about the Royals, okay? Even when they won the World Series, the story's never about the Royals, okay? The MLB, one series, MLB, they have series, whatever. One series is all it took. The Miami Marlins have had 18 players test positive. 18 players, bro. 18. That is more than half the roster. They have 25-man roster. 18 players are tested positive. Their season is on hold. Now, the rest of the league, what's going on? Outside of the Phillies, which had just played the Marlins, they've only had one person test positive, which wasn't even a player. It was a manager, so it seems like that one's probably unrelated to the Marlins situation. So everybody else has been cool. Royals still playing, Cardinals still playing, Giants playing, Dodgers and Astros had an amazing game. Fuck the Astros, which that's my favorite story of the year. Obviously, the Astros got caught cheating, and then they played the Dodgers, who they cheated against in the World Series. Dodgers absolutely, they beat them twice in a couple amazing games. So, anyways, that's not the story here. The story goes on even more with the COVID situation. Now more games are being canceled. The St. Louis Cardinals have had, I believe the number now is up to 4. 4 players have tested positive. 4 player and personnel have tested positive. And to this point, they just canceled their series. I think they were going to play the Brewers. Okay. At this point, 20% of the league is now currently without games being played. I believe it was like the Phillies, the Marlins, the Yankees, the Cardinals, the Brewers, and some other teams. So 20% of the league is now on ice. And obviously, they're not in a bubble. They're just traveling around, and a lot of travel is really, really bad in terms of catching COVID. And apparently the report is that the Marlins got it after going to a strip club in Atlanta. So does this prove, at long last, the NHL is coming back, which I'm going to talk about in a couple of minutes. And the NBA just had their games last night, and they've had preseason for the last week, and they've been in the bubble for about a month. Same thing for the NHL. Does this prove at long last? Because there was much skepticism going in to both their situations, NHL and the NBA, and the bubble situation. Does this prove at long last that the bubble is the right way to go, that these players are safe, and that this is the right situation? Because I saw Charles Barkley and I think it was Perkins. Perk's always talking shit, but, I love the man. About how the bubble's the wrong way to go. Does this prove at long last that this is the right way to go?
Well, man, we've seen the bubble in the UFC. We've seen the bubble in the NBA, man. Clearly the bubble works.
Yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it. The bubble works. Did you think it was like, obviously nothing's 100%, but do you think they're actually going to be able to finish their seasons in terms of like as compared to like baseball, for example?
If they keep it going how they are and they're safe like they are and keep everybody where they are, I think it should go well. I don't know why it wouldn't, At least it should get decently far.
Yeah, fair enough. I know that we talked about it, I want to say a couple weeks ago, in terms of when the NFL is gonna, like, the probability of their season going ahead. Does this drop your, like, even in, like, obviously NFL is gonna probably have different protocols in the MLB. Do you think this drops the percentage even lower of an NFL season actually happening?
Dude, if the NFL doesn't happen, America might break. So I think it's gonna happen.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, the MLB is yet to call off their season either, and from what I've heard, they're just gonna try and use replacement players whenever this stuff happens.
Come on, Josh. The 2 most American sports aren't gonna happen, and it's election time. People need to get mad at something outside of politics.
That's fair enough, but politics may be canceled too, man. Have you heard the news? Like, it's just,
Oh my god.
yeah. they're going to delay the election. They should delay the NFL as well. Yeah, I don't know if they're going to happen. I think MLB is trying to use replacement players. The NFL needs to figure out their shit, man. I don't know. I don't know what exactly they're going to do. If the MLB is having issues and the MLB is more of a socially distant sport, God knows what's going to happen with the NFL. Really need to figure it out quick. But yeah, man, shout out to MLB. It's been interesting seeing this. They're having fake fans. Even just having sports it's amazing though. I mean, even though with all the negativity going on with it, seeing like the Dodgers and Astros game a couple nights ago with like it was their first time playing each other, obviously since finding out the Astros cheated in the World Series. And, like, having all the drama. I'm like, man, this is some NBA type shit, man. The NBA is always the king of drama.
How do they even cheat, man? I didn't even hear about this. This is news to me now.
Oh, really? Okay, so the Astros played the Dodgers in the World Series. Astros have been one of the top teams for the last few years, okay? They made the World Series twice, but they only won one of them. That was against the Dodgers in 2017. And the Dodgers have always been, Clayton Kershaw leading the team. They've always been very consistently good, but they've never been able to get over the hump. The closest they got was they lost in 7 games to the Astros in 2017. That was the closest they got to it. Anyways, it came out this past offseason the Astros were cheating. What they were doing was they were, I think they were sign stealing. So basically, anytime their hitters went up to the plate, they knew what pitches they were going to be throwing. Because like they would look at the other team's signs, and they had like camera angles and all this sort of shit. And they would have this thing, they had this system where like somebody in the dugout would bang a trash can. Where like if you bang, for example, you bang it once, fastball. You bang it twice, curveball. Bang it 3 times, slider. Stuff like that.
Holy shit, that's pretty ingenious. I can't even hate.
Yeah, but that is cheating. That's very clear cheating.
Hey, Josh, that's just tactical play. No,
I mean, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. But anyways, basically, fuck the Astros, okay? No, but anyway, so the thing with the MLB is I put far more blame on the MLB than the Astros. Because the Astros cheated, yes. The MLB allowed the Astros to cheat. Because here's the worst part. The MLB, in finding out all this, their response was to not take away the championship, not suspend any of the players. What they did was they took a first-round pick, and they suspended the head coach, and that was it.
That's surprisingly light.
Yeah, for literally cheating and winning the World Series. So that leads into this, this series against the Dodgers, right? 2-game series, which normally they're 3, but for the sake of player safety, probably 2 is a smart decision. First game, primetime, Fox. Joe Kelly pitching. And Kelly, for what it's worth, wasn't even on the Dodgers, but he was on the Red Sox in 2017. And guess who the Dodgers beat to go to the World Series in 2017? The Red Sox. So this man has a personal vendetta against them. And Joe Kelly, for one night, was America's man. He pitched a really bad game, honestly. I think he left in the sixth inning. He only gave up 2 runs, but I think he left with all runners on base. He hit 2 batters in a row. And then he hit one of them. Then the next time around, he almost hit the other guy in the head. Like, it went over his head. And then he striked the dude out right afterwards, which was pretty baller. And then the dude who's the dude at bat, Carlos Correa for the Astros, he started arguing with him. And then Joe Kelly just started calling him a bitch and started making like, oh, you're going to cry, you little baby? Like, fuck off. Like, he was saying like a bunch of stuff. Like he was – Joe Kelly was America's man for one night. And then the Dodgers ended up beating them, I think 7-2. Absolutely baller moment. Shout out the Dodgers. And then they ended up playing them the following day, and they beat them again in extra innings in like overtime. So that was an awesome back-to-back series, which made me realize that's how much I miss sports, even baseball. Because baseball in its like – the highest dramatic moment is probably top as it gets. Maybe football and basketball over, but whatever. Still a lot of fun though. So, So moving on, talk about some quick NHL predictions. I know Angel does not watch the NHL, so this is kind of a mute point. But if you guys were not aware, the NHL is back. They're doing the bubble, as I just said. And they're up in Canada, so that makes it even more likely that they're going to be okay. From my understanding, it's going to be a 24-team play-in. There's going to be like a play-in round, and there's going to be playoffs, and it's going to be, really nice and condensed. I believe it starts tomorrow, so by the time this gets uploaded, you guys should have time to listen to my predictions. before the games start tomorrow. There's a couple of and then basically if you're not playing in, I believe the first and second teams are playing for a quick round robin tournament for not tournament but like a real quick series tournament who will be the 1 seed, which is going to be obviously the Blues. They're playing obviously going to be Blues. Real quick series. I believe they're going to be 5-game series. So Montreal taking on Pittsburgh. I'm going to take the Penguins here. I think Crosby and them boys are just going to get it done. I don't have a whole lot of faith in Montreal this season. I don't know why anybody would ever have faith in Montreal. Edmonton, Chicago. Chicago's been disappointing this season for me. I mean, Patrick Kane, they still have a really good core group, but I just don't think that they're going to be able to get past Edmonton. I think Edmonton's going to be able to get them out of there, which is awesome because, I hate Chicago. Nashville, Arizona. I'm taking Nashville here. Rangers, Carolina. This is a really close series for me to pick. They're right neck and neck in terms of wins and losses as well. I'm going to take the Rangers to move on. Islanders, Panthers. Does anybody give a flying fuck about the Florida Panthers? Does anybody care? No, nobody cares. I'm going to take the Islanders here. Wild, Canucks. I'm going to go the upset here. I think it's an upset anyways. I'm going to take the Minnesota Wild to move on. Toronto, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Toronto, obviously. Winnipeg and Calgary. Got to take Winnipeg. And then obviously number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference is going to be Boston, I think. Number 1 seed in the West Conference is going to be the Blues, obviously. So that's my quick predictions there for the NHL. They're opening kind of, round, qualifying round, and then obviously the seeding and all that stuff. So just want to quickly do that. Angel, are you going to watch the NHL playoffs, my man?
Recently I saw that the Seattle Kraken have entered the NHL. I might have to become a fan just because of that. Because I can say I was there from the start.
That's true, man. I mean, you should just wait for the Kansas City team to come, though. Because apparently we're in the running. That's what I've heard. I've heard we're in the running and that we may get a team. But that's going to be a really big issue for me personally because I'm not sure if I'll have to switch from being a Blues fan or not. But I'll pass that bridge when it comes to it. But yeah, man, the NHL, they're up in Canada in their little bubble. I don't think that they're going to have any COVID tests. I mean, the NBA's obviously at risk because they're in Florida. And still in America, obviously. Even if they were in America, there'll be more risk. But in Florida, nonetheless, man, that's bad. But I still think it's real bad. But I think the NHL, they're smart. They went out of the country. They're up in Canada, where a lot of players come from anyway.
No surprise.
Not surprised. So I think they're gonna be cool. I'm really excited. I think hockey's a sport that translates relatively fine without an audience. I think some sports just don't translate well. I've talked about many times how bad pro wrestling has been. I think baseball is a weird one too. Okay, baseball is bad because they have the fake fans. Let me be clear about that. The fake fans with Fox has been really, really bad. Fox Sports Kansas City, which has been showing the Royals games, they don't have the fake fans. It's amazing. It's great. The NBA, they're doing something interesting where they have the fans up on the screen. So basically, I think there's a way where if you get some sort of app or something, you can get yourself up on the screen and they're sharing whatever as they're watching the game. It's weird, but that's more
troll one day. Someone's gonna do such a fucking.
Chris Bosh trolled last night.
Oh, what did he do?
He popped up in the game.
Oh my god.
You didn't know that?
No, I'm saying something worse.
Game. Oh yeah, well I think they're gonna find a way around that. I'm pretty sure it's delayed. It has to be delayed. I don't think it's a lot. I think it's you show up and then you put yourself on there or you do the thing to get yourself in there, and then they'll do cheer or something, and then it's delayed. Oh, I think that has to be it because they delay the broadcast 7 seconds anyway.
Okay.
But I think that's better because they still have a little bit of crowd noise and there's players who watch the game. So NBA I thought translated pretty well, which kind of parlays into our next topic. What were your thoughts on the NBA's return last night? Because obviously they were both amazing games, which is not surprising. But what were your thoughts on stuff we talked about presentation, but now that was just scrimmages, right? They had the fans up on the screen. They had the music going. They had the broadcast. Kevin Harlan obviously killing it for TNT. What were your thoughts on everything, man? Because personally, me, just seeing it, I'm I expected it to be weird. Instead, we got, which was, I thought, a pretty good outcome. If things are like this for the rest of the year, the next few months, I'll be cool with it. I liked the NBA's return last night.
It was normal. It felt normal. It felt organic. It for what it was worth. And it was fun, man. like you said, no question about the games. You know what was crazy though? You know how it usually takes a little bit to transition to the player into the player interview right after the game. Well, it was so quick right afterwards with LeBron, dude, just instantly just going to the side and talking to the reporter on the sideline, which felt kind of interesting. I was like, oh wow, that was so quick. It like instantly, game ended, bam, everybody's walking off the court, and then LeBron just walks as he's walking off too, and then bam, he goes to the interviewer. So I was like, man, that's a nice little change of pace, I guess.
Yeah, I thought, generally speaking, I really, really enjoyed the game last night. Like, both games. And that's the thing that's surprising to me. Because I thought these players coming in, obviously, they had, like, a couple of scrimmages. But I thought they'd be rusty. And even the scrimmages, as compared to the games last night, like, presentation-wise, you could tell it was, like, a base, like, just kind of a skeleton crew. It wasn't that intense. But, man, I really, really enjoyed the games last night, man. Both games came down to the wire. In case you guys are curious, Lakers won, I think, 103, 102, or 101, something along those lines. LeBron getting, obviously scoring the game-winning shot, because who else but LeBron? And then I think he locked down, I think it was Kawhi or PG to win the game. And then Rudy Gobert scoring the first and last points of the Pelicans games. How about that? The man who was greatest defender in the league put the league on ice, for months. Greatest defender in the league, shut down 29 other teams. Shout out Rudy Gobert, and then he hit the game-winning free throws. So shout out that man. Is there anything else you have to take away from the NBA's return before moving on to boxing?
Not much, man. Just that there's a nice set of games coming up, like, as a whole. Like, they have, like, I'm pretty sure basketball's gonna be going, like, all day today, and which is perfect, man. It's just the perfect storm, so I'm excited.
Yeah, I think games literally just started right now. I think it might be the Nets who's playing. So, I mean, games are going to be going on like all day long. And then obviously I think games are going to be going on like for a while now. Like for all day for the next couple of months, generally speaking. Especially up until the playoffs, which is basically starts in like 20 days. Less than 20 days in the playoffs start. So, yeah. We just talk about the NBA. Now we can move on to an NBA-related topic. Not really, but moving on to boxing. Right after we capped up the news, like finished recording and capped everything off with Roy Jones Jr., Mike Tyson. Of course, more details had to come out right after we finished recording. Before we even hopped off the call, by the way. Very rarely does this happen. It was announced right afterwards. Jake Paul will be taking on Nate Robinson. Yes, former dunk champion, former all-star, I believe. Nate Robinson taking on Jake Paul on the undercard of Mike Tyson, Roy Jones Jr., the exhibition. So that's going to be, it's almost surreal for that to happen. So it's just, I'm assuming it's going to be the co-main, which is going to be insane to just have that lead-in of Jake Paul and Nate Robinson into Mike Tyson, Roy Jones Jr. So, Angel, what is your first takeaway, man? I mean, there's a whole lot to talk about here. There's a lot that's like we could pull away, talk away about. So, what is your first reaction to finding out Jake Paul is going to be back against Nate Robinson?
It goes to show how much of a team is everything going on. But you know something, it's like Nate Robinson out of everybody on this planet. It could have been anybody, It could have been John Cena, but it's Nate Robinson, of all human beings.
I don't know, man. I feel like John Cena's a couple weight classes out, but
No. You know what I mean. It's like the category of person, the last person I would have thought would have been, Nate Robinson. Like, Soulja Boy would have made a lot of sense to me, because that was an ongoing rumor for like almost a good year now.
Well, Soulja Boy just dropped his new album, so it makes sense.
No, you're right, but still, the thing is, it's like ex-NBA player Nate Robinson was not who I would have expected Jake Paul to fight.
Yeah, especially surprising considering this kind of puts the KSI fight in jeopardy. Like, does it not? Like, hypothetically, if Jake loses here, which very real possibility, guys. Like, let's acknowledge this real quick. Nate Robinson is not a boxer. However, he is, probably one of the greatest athletes to step into the NBA in a long time. Like, in terms of athleticism, hops, like his ability is insane, especially as a dude who's like 5'9", I think, 5'8". He has ridiculous athleticism, and he's having months to prepare. And Jake Paul is just kind of an average dude. Obviously, he's probably a good athlete. I think he wrestled in high school. He wasn't as good as Logan. Logan was like an state champion wrestler out of Ohio, for God's sakes. And Ohio's a ridiculously good, like in terms of state wrestling, Ohio is ridiculously good. So I don't know if Jake, I'm pretty sure he did high school wrestling, but who knows if he was that good of an athlete. I mean, dudes do wrestling all the time in high school, and they're garbage. And he's taking on a dude, Nate Robinson, who's, one of the greatest athletes to step on the court in a long time. Now, granted, let's be fair here. Nate Robinson is older. I think he's in his mid-30s, I want to say. Jake's going to be the taller man. He's going to be the bigger man. But at the same time, Nate Robinson, he's 36. He's been out of the league for a while. He's been playing in the Big Three, and he's actually been killing it in the Big Three. He's been out of the league since, I want to say, 2017. I think in 2017 he's playing in like the the G League. But at one point, this dude was one of the best, 6 men in the league. He was a 3-time slam dunk contest champion. So he's an amazing athlete. Personally, me, I don't want to give predictions, but I know last week we did this too whenever we came with Mike and Roy. We said somebody we're leaning towards, and for me, I think I'm leaning towards Jake, man. And it's insane to think about because I think Jake is a very slight underdog. I want to say it's a pick'em. I don't know enough for sure because I haven't looked at the odds, but I want to say it's a pick'em. So personally, me, man, I'm leaning towards Jake, and it's for the same reasons that I gave against Anderson Gibb whenever he fought him earlier this year. Jake has more experience. He's been boxing for a while. He's training with an amazing coach in Sugar Shane Mosley. Former world champion. Also, though, he's going to be the bigger man in there. He's going to have the longer reach. Nate Robinson is an amazing athlete, but he's older. He doesn't have much boxing experience. People always say, he's an amazing athlete. He should be fine against there. It shouldn't take him that long to pick stuff up. But, man, only a couple months of training isn't a lot. You could be an amazing athlete. You could be a 3-time slam dunk champion. You could be an NBA starter for years. But getting hit in the face is a completely different ballgame. So, Angel, like, what are your thoughts? Like, who are you leaning towards? If you were to say someone you're leaning towards heading into this,
you got to be a special type of human being to be able to succeed at boxing. It's one of the hardest sports in the world. I'm not saying it is the hardest, but when it comes to putting everything together, it is a challenge. And if Nate were to go in there, put on a show, and impress us, I mean, man, that just goes to show the level of talent, an athlete at the highest level has, to be able to transition to another sport. Because credit to Jake, he's a relatively good guy, athletically speaking, all around.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, he is a good athlete, generally speaking. But at the same point, I mean, I'm sure. I mean, let me rephrase. I'm sure he's a good athlete. Jake's, like I said, former high school wrestler, but at the same point, I don't think he was as good as Logan. But also, for what it's worth, he seems to display that he's a good athlete in terms of his boxing. I think especially in the Gibb fight, man. Like in the Gibb fight, Jake looked like a boxer, and I think that's a very that's a thing that we understate here, like, right? Because Gibb and Deji are not high level opponents. However, if you look the part and you're decimating these guys, that means something, right?
Oh, you're right. You're definitely right. I mean, he's definitely smart. At least base level, he has all the good fundamentals to build off. Granted, it's not world class, but for what it's worth, it's good enough to get him to be another guy who put in a couple months of training and punk him a little bit.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, because I remember I saw a lot of people, like you said, he might punk him, and that's kind of what I'm thinking here too, because I don't know a whole lot about Nate's preparation. I don't know a whole lot about. Here's another part too. I'm assuming since it's COVID, I don't think he's going to be training as often. Even if you have the fundamentals like Jake, if you're a guy who's been training for 2 years, you're going to be so far ahead than a dude who's a good athlete who's just hitting mitts. And I saw, Nate Robinson, he's put out some training videos. He looks like he's in killer shape, which isn't surprising. But him hitting pads, I'm like, man, this dude he's got to do some work. And that's not me being mean here. That's not me trying to be, disrespectful or anything. But the man's got to put in some work, especially if you're going to go in there and try and box someone, a guy who's been training for longer, a guy he seems to have the fundamentals, he seems to have the striking down. And something that cannot be overstated either is some dudes, you can be a good athlete, you can look amazing in the training room, but fighting for real is a completely different story, man. You've seen it with Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar, amazing wrestler, former UFC champion. What was the knock on him? He could not handle getting punched in the face. He reacted poorly to it. He had a really, really bad poker face. Some dudes are good athletes, but they're not built for that life. Robbie Lawler's a dude who loves getting hit in the face. Brock Lesnar's not. Logan Paul, his brother, honestly, in training, he looks like the better guy. He has a great jab. He's been training for longer. He looks great. He looks like a Greek god. You know what I mean? So he's in great shape. But also, he's not good at getting punched in the face. He does not have that killer instinct. Jake, for what it's worth, again, he seems to have that killer instinct in terms of, going for the kill, seeing somebody's hurt, pouring on the pressure, not being afraid to walk forward to get hit in the face. That's another thing. Deji bloodied him up. It was a whole meme because Deji had more success than he should have. But he was not afraid. Jake Paul was not afraid to walk forward and, take that punishment. Logan didn't seem like he was that scared to take punishment. First couple rounds in the first KSA fight, he styled on him. But then once he got hit, once he got tired, he realized, man, this may not be for me. In the second one, he was way more patient. He was not moving very much. So for what it's worth, I'm leaning towards Jake. We'll have to see what happens. But are you more intrigued by that than the main event? Because as stuff has come out about the main event, it's going to be more of an exhibition more than an actual fight, according to the California State Athletic Commission. But
that's what it's supposed to be, though. It's supposed to be an exhibition, man. We can't.
Yeah.
Complain.
Okay, but you know what I'm saying here, man. Like, we knew it was going to be an exhibition, but, like, the way they were hyping it up.
It almost seemed like a real fight. I know what you mean. But, it's an exhibition at the end of the day. I'll take it for what it's worth. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I still take it. But personally, me, I'm like, and it's weird because we're having two veterans of the game, and Roy Jones Jr., in my opinion, is the greatest boxer of all time. Him facing off against Mike, that's a dream fight right there. I'm more intrigued by Jake Paul, and that's weird to say.
No, I'm not going to lie to you, so am I. But it's because, we've been getting all these YouTuber matches, bro. It's literally what it is. And, I don't blame us, but we'll see, Hey, that's something, but this is perfect, man. We'll get that KSI Jake Paul fight. It's perfect to be like, if Jake Paul wins this, he could be like, JJ, I just beat a world-class athlete, bro. Where are your accolades at now, man? You know what I mean?
Yeah, so that would build even more hype. At the same point, if he loses, do you think it goes out the window?
I'm sure JJ would play it down a lot.
Yeah, probably. But then does that mean we get Nate Robinson versus KSI? Like, what?
That'd also be a good match. I wouldn't even complain about that. I'd be down for that too, personally.
All right, now moving on to our last topic of the day. Mike Tyson, Roy Jones Jr. It seems it's a topic of the week, man. We keep on seeing more details come out about it. We're seeing some more news, like apparently how it's going to be on the app Triller, which I've never heard of. It seems like it's a TikTok ripoff. But I know they're doing a 10-part docuseries covering Mike and Roy's training, which I still need to watch. The first episode came out, I think, yesterday. They're doing a really, really good job of promoting this thing, even though it's not really an actual fight. But here's the interesting part here. The pay-per-view price came out a couple days ago. Mike Tyson, if you guys want to see Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones Jr. in an 8-round exhibition boxing match, and without sailing the high seas, you're going to have to spend $49.99. Also on the card, like we just talked about for the last 10 minutes, Jake Paul versus Nate Robinson will be on the undercard. We don't know how many rounds. We don't know if it's going to be an official boxing match, but we assume it will be. And then also another piece of news, Badou Jack. Is he still champion, I believe? Light heavyweight champion?
I don't know, but I heard about that, and it felt really weird when they said it.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the guy. Let me be very clear. I love me some Badou Jack. Obviously, former champion. He may still be a champion, but I don't know if he is currently champion. But anyway,
I'm on it. Yeah,
actually, he's lost his last two. All right, he lost to John Pascal and Marcus Brown, and both of those were wars, especially the John Pascal one, which happened in December.
Not the best look though either, because Pascal's probably not in his best moments recently though. Realistically though, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fair. But anyway, so he's going to be on the undercard. Against who? No idea. But he's also going to be on undercard. He's a world-class boxer. We don't know anybody else that's going to be on the undercard. It seems like, the initial story was it's going to be a couple MMA fighters versus boxers. But we've heard nothing about that. Tito Ortiz is now busy starting his political career rather than boxing. Apparently he's running for mayor of Huntington Beach, which I suppose is a story that we could have had in its own right, but that's the highest moment of my journalism career, is talking about that, writing about that earlier this week. But anyways, so let's get back to the story at hand. Tyson Jones, $50. Too high?
It's weird, because I'm not the biggest fan of it. I think if it was half of that, I'd be like, okay, that's reasonable. But since it's not half of that, I'm like, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of it. I'll put it like that.
Yeah, it's a weird catch-22 situation to me, right? Because it seems like the bigger boxing matches, UFC has always been standard, right? $60. Well, 65 with the ESPN Plus. Isn't that what we paid for $249, 65?
Yeah.
All right. I mean, we don't really buy pay-per-views here, boys, so no.
We go to our local Buffalo Wild Wings. That's what we do.
Exactly, of course. So, yeah, so $65 for 60 to 65. I know it used to be 50 to 60. They've upped the prices, but anyways, so they're still pretty standard, right? Boxing pay-per-view prices range anywhere. They really do. They're either free, they're on Showtime, they're on HBO, not on HBO anymore, but they used to be. Pay-per-view wise, they tend to be anywhere from $60 to $100. I feel like the bigger ones have been $100 pretty much standard. Floyd's like $100. I think Fury and Wilder was $80. Don't quote me on that. Went to Buffalo Wild Wings for that one. No, but yeah, so pretty standard. So in a weird way, it's cheaper than the average pay-per-view, but it's still too much at $50. Like it's weird. I think if this was an actual boxing match, they'd have me more on board. But because I know they're going in there and they're not gonna they're just gonna be basically it's a hard sparring session. That's what it is. It's a hard sparring session. And unless anybody gets knocked out or like somebody gets cut and they have to stop it for like the doctor, because I heard that if somebody gets cut, they're gonna stop the fight, which means TKO for anybody, whoever it happens to.
You gotta land an elbow in there, bro.
Yeah, exactly. Mike's gonna go back to them headbutts, gonna go back to them ears. So any cut, man, they'll stop it. But so too high for you? I'm also gonna go too high, man. I mean, $50 is a lot of money, and right now too. I think if they built a better undercard, that would be like a problem. Like it would not be such a big of a problem. Like if they had like more of a realistic undercard, but it seems like they're going all in on the freak show fights, which is really, really fun. Like I love me some freak show fights. We just spent from this week to like last week to this week, we probably spent half an hour talking about these ridiculous 55-year-old men, like 54-year-old men fighting, and then we just spent time talking about a YouTuber versus an NBA player. So it's strange, man, but at the same point, it's too high for me as well. So, but we're still gonna watch it. Go to Buffalo Wild Wings. Is there anything else you want to touch on before we bounce out of here, man?
No, man, I think that's it. I think we've got it all settled.
All right, my guys. So, hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Courtside Soundoff podcast. If you want to find us, Spotify, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, YouTube, Podbean, Apple, iTunes, tons of other places which I don't remember the name of. Podcast Addict is another one which I've heard a lot of people are actually a fan of. So I feel that's a really good app for podcasts. So check us out there as well. Our website, courtsidesoundoff.podbean.com. We're available on Twitter if you guys want to follow us there at Courtside Sound 1. I'm at Josh Sevenoff on Twitter. He's at Andrew_01. Keep an eye on my Twitter in particular. No offense, Angel, but keep an eye on my Twitter in particular.
Oh, boy.
I'm working with Boxing Insider Charles J on his story. If guys saw Miranda Atkins get absolutely murked last weekend. I did a story about that on CageSidePress.com and the promoter John Carden, which is kind of an expose, which is not something I normally do. But I've heard it's a really good piece. I'm being objective here, but you guys should check it out. So we're doing pretty good numbers on that. So yeah, man. If you guys enjoyed this one, we're also available on Facebook and Instagram. So if you guys would follow us there, which we will not post there, but whatever. So peace and butt grease. Mouse click.